Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel MiTutorials. This is week 6 of the Introduction to Python series on my channel. In the last week's tutorial, we learned about pandas. We learned how to import pandas into Python. We learned how to convert a list into a pandas series. We learned how to convert an array into pandas series. And we learned how to create a data frame within pandas. We learned how to access and modify rows within the pandas data frame. I hope you guys are able to follow the tutorials and also practice as much as possible so that you can get a hang of how things work in Python and start using it. That is the only way where you can learn Python. So I hope you guys are really practicing and learning Python. And this is the week 6 of the tutorial. In the week 6 tutorial, we will go through how to read CSV or the Excel files or import these Excel files into Python and work with that particular data. So let's get started with this tutorial. So first of all, when you are using the Google Colab, so you will have to write from google.colab import drive. So what this is basically doing is it's using Google Colab and it is importing the Google Drive. This is the Google Drive, so we just mention as drive over here, and then on the next line we say drive.mount. We need to mount the drive over here, and this is the standard syntax which you will have to use when you are trying to mount a drive. So we just mention as /content/drive, and let's run this piece of code. It will ask us to give permission to the Google Drive. So I'm going to click on connect to Google Drive and I'm going to click on allow over here. So once all the permissions have been granted, it will create a connection with the Google Drive. So once the connection is created, you will get a message something like this. It says mounted at content.drive. And on the drive over here, I've created two folders. I've created the first folder called as collab_notebooks, and within that I have a folder called as datasets. Within the datasets folder, I have a few files with .csv and .xlsx extension. So let's go back to Python over here. So this is the standard path until over here, content/drive/my_drive. So this is going to be standard when you are passing in the location of that particular file, and then followed by /collab_notebooks. This is the folder that I have in my Google Drive, which we saw over here, the Colab notebooks, and then followed by datasets. This is again a folder which I have within the Colab notebooks, followed by the file name that I have, which is grocery_sales.csv. So I'm creating a string of the location where I have my file saved on the Google Drive and assigning it to a variable called as csv_path. So let's run this code over here and you will see that a new variable has been created called as csv path. And before we do that, we will have to import pandas because we will be using pandas to import the CSV files. So I'm going to import the pandas library over here by typing in import pandas as pd, and then on the next line over here I am passing in the function within the pandas called as read_csv. So this is the function within the pandas. So I'm calling in the pandas library pd.read_csv is the function to read the CSV files, and then we're passing in the path over here, which is the variable that we created over here. So instead of creating a variable, you can also pass in the string that you have over here directly into the read_csv function. Within the parentheses, you can mention this string over here and it will read the file from the location. And then what I'm doing over here is I'm going to read that particular file and then assign it to the variable called as gsales. So gsales is the variable which has the data frame wherein all of the data within this particular CSV file, which is grocery_sales, gets saved in that. So let me just run this code and you will see what is happening. So when I run this, gsales variable is created, and when we look at gsales, if we want to take a look at the data which is present in that particular data frame, so I'm going to call that particular variable. This is the data frame gsales.head. So I'm going to pass in this particular function over here, and when I run this code, you will see that we've now got the data, the columns and the rows which contains in that particular CSV file. So this is exactly what we have. So if I look at the grocery sales file over here, this is the data that I have in that particular sheet: order date, customer name, category, until state over here. So that is exactly what I have over here. These are my top 5 rows. gsales.head is going to bring me the top 5 rows in that particular data set. Now also notice that it has automatically added the index column to our data frame. Now this is how you can read a CSV file within Python. Let's look at how can you import or read the Excel file, which is with .xlsx format. So I'm going to create another variable here called as Excel path and pass in the particular string over here, which contains the location of the file. Remember, the content/drive/my drive is the standard string that you will have to pass in, and after that is where the folders which are there in your Google Drive comes into the picture. So I have the folder called as notebooks, Colab notebooks, and then datasets. That is where I have my HR data underscore xlsx file. So I'm going to run this code over here, and then Excel path is created. So instead of doing this, I can simply pass in within this particular variable over here. So notice that in the earlier scenario, when we imported the CSV file, we said read underscore CSV. But in this case, when we are reading an Excel file, there is a function within the pandas library which says read underscore Excel, and then we can pass in the link to that particular file where the data is saved. In this case, it is on the Google Drive under the Colab notebooks and datasets folder. So I'm going to run this cell over here. I'm reading this particular data set which is in the Excel file HR underscore data and assigning the data frame into a new variable called as HR underscore data, and then I'm calling in the head of that particular data frame. So when I run this cell over here, you will see that we've got the first 5 rows from that particular data set, and index column has been added automatically into this particular data frame. Now let's look at how can you save back the data frame into a CSV file or an Excel file back into the Google Drive. We're going to call the variable HR underscore data. This is where we imported our data frame, and then we're going to use the function called as .to underscore CSV, and we're going to pass in the location where the data needs to be saved. Remember that you will have to also pass in the extension of that particular file. In this case, it is the .csv as an extension because we are saving this in a CSV format. And let me just get rid of this for a moment and let me run this cell now and let's see what happens. So let me go to the Google Drive now, and if I refresh this, you will see that we have a new file created called as HR underscore data.csv. Remember, we only had the HR data.xlsx earlier. We did not have the CSV file. So this is the new file that is generated via the Python code that we just ran. So when I double click this particular file and see the contents of this particular file, you will see that we have all the columns that we had in our HR underscore data.xlsx file. But you will notice that it has also added a new column with the index values, right? So Python automatically added the index value to our data frame that we saw over here, and when we exported the file into the CSV format, it has automatically added the index values as well. Now if you do not want to have the index values, now you can mention that in the second argument and say index is equals to false. And when I run this code again, and let me refresh the Google Drive over here, and you will see that when I open the file, we do not have the index column in this particular file. Now sometimes you might need to have the index column, sometimes you might not need the index column. Based on your requirement, you can change this to include or to exclude that particular column. And to save back data into an Excel format, you can simply do HR underscore data dot to underscore Excel and pass in the location where you want the file to get saved. Please remember that you have to pass in the extension of the file that you want as well. So remember, this is the HR underscore data underscore new. So if I go back to my folder over here, I do not have that particular file which says HR underscore data underscore new. And when I run this cell over here, you will see that a new file has been created in the Google Drive. So when I refresh the Google Drive folder, you will see that we've created a new file called HR underscore data underscore new .xlsx on the Google Drive. So this is how you can read the CSV and Excel files within Python and also save it back into a certain folder. Now let's look at some other functions. So our CSV file data from the grocery underscore sales is saved in the gsales variable. So if we look back over here, gsales.head, this is the function which fetches us the top 5 rows of that particular data set. This gives us the view of our top 5 rows. This will also tell us what are the columns that we have in our data set and gives us a visibility into top 5 rows of that particular data set. If you want to look at the bottom rows of that particular data set, you can simply run gsales, which is our variable, dot tail and open and close parenthesis. So when you run this, you will see that we are now seeing the last 5 rows in that particular data frame, and we have 6,579 rows. Remember, the index value here is starting from 0. And if you want to know the number of rows and columns in that particular data frame, you can simply call in the data frame, which is gsales, and type in dot shape. Remember that you do not have to pass in parentheses over here. When I run this cell over here, you will see that we have 6,580 rows and 11 columns. Now let's say if you want to look at some more information regarding that particular data set, so we can call in the variable gsales and pass in the function dot info open and close parenthesis. So when I run this cell over here, you will see that it is giving us a whole lot of information, and first of all it is giving us the names of the column present in that particular data set. So there are 11 columns starting from the index value starting from 0 until 10. So there are 11 columns in this case. It is giving us all the columns names present in that particular data set, and this will also give us an indication if there are any null values present in the data set. So my total number of rows in the data set are 6,580, and in this case it is the same value for all the columns over here, meaning that we do not have any null values present in that particular data set. And it also gives us information about the data type. So our order ID is an object data type, our customer name is object data type. Likewise, if we look at the sales over here, this is an integer data type. Our discount and profit is float data type, meaning that they have decimals in that particular column. And then our state, obviously, which has string, is an object. So it tells us the size of the dataset as well, which is 565 KB. By passing in just this 6-letter code over here, you will get all of the information pertaining to that particular dataset. Now let's see how can we get the min values and max values from a particular column. So I can call in the variable, which is gsales dot sales dot min and open and close parentheses over here. So this function will return the minimum value from the sales column from the gsales data frame. So in this case, the minimum value in the sales field is 500. And likewise, I can do max of that particular column, and when I run this cell over here, I will get the maximum value of the sales amount in that particular data set, which is 2,500. And let's say if you want to get the unique values present in a particular column, let's say I want to know what all categories are present in that particular data set. So I can call in the variable gsales dot category. This is my column name in that particular data set, and then pass in a function called as dot unique open and close parenthesis. This will fetch me all the unique values in that particular column. Now that we've got the unique categories from the category column, we want to know the number of unique categories in that particular column. So how can we do that? For that, there's a function called as nUnique. Within the data frame gsales, we're calling in the category column over here, followed by the function which is nUnique, which will give us the unique number of rows present in that particular column. In this case, there are 7 unique categories. And additional n over here, things will change. Over here, you will get the unique values. Over here, you will get the count just by adding in n before unique to get the number of unique rows. Now let's say you want to know the number of rows present in that particular data set against a category. So I can pass in the function called as value underscore counts open and close parenthesis. When I run this cell over here, you will see that we've got the categories, unique categories, and also the number of rows present in that particular category. Now we've got the unique categories, and it is also giving us the counts of this particular category that is repeating in that particular data set. In this case, snacks is repeated 1012 times. Fruits and veggies are repeated 940 times in that particular data set. Now, like we got the count against that particular categories, let's say you want to know the percentage contribution of this particular category, you can simply pass in another argument within the parenthesis called as normalize is equals to true. Rest of the things remains the same, just as value counts. So dot value counts within the parenthesis, we're going to pass in an argument called as normalize is equals to true. And when I run this cell over here, you will see that this is returning the percentage of that particular category. Now let's see how can we use some of the arithmetic functions. So I'm going to call in the variable gsales or the data frame gsales dot sales column, and then there's a function called as dot mean and open and close parenthesis. This will return me the average value from the sales column in that particular data set, which is 1503. Likewise, if I want to know the median amount from that particular data set, I can pass in the function called as dot median, and when I run this cell, you will get the median value in that particular data set, which is 1518. So likewise, there's another function called as mode, which will give you the mode of that particular column. So when I run this cell over here, you will see that 1712 is the mode value of that particular sales column. And now let's say you want to group by category and find the sales amount. So what you can do is you can use the dot group by function. Within the parenthesis, you need to pass in the column that you want to group by. In this case, I want to group by category column, and after that you need to mention the value field over here. In this case it is sales, and after that I'm passing in a function called as dot sum open and close parenthesis over here. So when I run this code, you will get the sales amount grouped by that particular category. Like I did the sum over here by grouping on the category column, I can also do the same thing here but return the average amount for that particular category. So when I run this cell over here, this is the average amount in that particular category. Let's say if you want to group by multiple columns, let's say I want to group by category and also the region. So what I can do is I can pass in a list within the group by function. I have my category, I have my region, you can add as many columns as you want, and then I want to find the mean sales amount. So I can pass in the value field, in this case it is the sales column, dot mean, and when I run this cell over here, you will see the data being grouped by category first and then the region and their respective mean or average amount. And let me add a new line of code over here and call in gsales dot head. So this will fetch me the top 5 rows of that particular data set. So I have a column called as profit, and let's say if I want to increase my profit by 15% and add a new column into our data frame, let's see how can we do that. So let's create a function to do that. So I'm going to define a function. I hope you remember we learned how to create functions within Python. So I'm going to define a function using def. This is the function name. I'm passing in a parameter called as x over here, and then I'm saying return x plus x into 15%. So this is the function that we are creating. So let me run this code over here, and we have now created a new function called as inc profit, and then I'm going to call the data frame, which is gsales dot profit. So this is my column name. The alternative way of writing this is I can pass in the column name within the square brackets over here and mention and have the quotes. So gsales profit. So this is my data frame gsales and this is my column name profit. I am applying the function which is inc profit over here. So I'm passing in the function to the column profit. So when I run the cell over here, what happens is you will see that this has now added 15% of my profit to this particular cell. 362 is my first value over here. So if you look at profit over here, it is 315. When you add 15% to 315, the value is 362. So this particular code has only returned the values, but this has not saved anywhere or it has not overwritten the data frame. So if you want to add a new column, I can simply pass in the data frame gsales, and then I'm creating a new column over here called as new profit. I'm assigning all the values that are present in this particular function to this particular column. So when I run this cell over here, you will see a new column getting created in our data frame gsales. And let's look at the head of that gsales data frame, and you will see that a new column has now been created with the value 362, which is increase of 15% in our profit column. So 77, if you add 15% to this, has now become 89. Likewise, 80.9, if you add 15%, has now become 93. And you can also sort values based on the column. Let's say I want to sort the values in this particular data frame by new profit column. I can pass in the function dot sort underscore values, And within the parenthesis, I can say I need to sort this by profit, new profit column, by is equals to new profit, and then I'm saying ascending is equals to false. There is no descending per se as a function within Python where you can mention. So you will have to play around with either ascending is equals to false or ascending is equals to true. In this case, we will say ascending is equals to false, which means that it is obviously descending. And when I run this cell over here, you will see that this has now been sorted by new profit in the descending manner. So with this, we've come to an end of this week's tutorial. Let's do a quick recap of what all we have learned today. So we learned how to mount Google Drive within Google Colab. We learned how to read CSV or the Excel files within Python. And we learned how to save the data back into the CSV or the Excel file. We went through some of the functions to fetch the top rows within a data frame. We learned how to see the bottom rows within the data frame. We learned also how to see the shape of that particular data frame. We learned about the info function, which will give us the columns and the number of rows within that particular data set along with the data type present. And then we learned how to extract the minimum value, maximum value. We learned how to extract the unique values. We learned how to get the count of the unique values. And then we also learned how to get the percentages of that particular category. We did the value counts over here. We also went through some of the arithmetic functions like the mean, median, and mode. We learned how to group by category. We learned how to group by with multiple columns. We created a function to multiply our profit by 15 or increase our profit by 15%. And we also learned how to sort values in a particular data set. So that's it, guys, in this particular tutorial. I hope you guys are able to follow my tutorials. If you have any feedback for me, please do let me know in the comment section, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching.